We are talking about how to prep our dance shoes for our performances. Your dance shoes should be maintained throughout classes to begin with. However, we want everything in tip top shape by the time we get to show. Sometimes you may need to get new shoes come showtime. Um, when you're working with point shoes, obviously you do not want brand new shoes, but that is a discussion for talking about point work instead. For those who are in ballet, you want to double check that your shoes are in good shape. You want to make sure that any stitches are all intact. If you need to, you can hand stitch them really quick. This applies whether you're wearing flats or your point shoes. You always want to make sure that your stitching is where it belongs. If you find any frays, you want to make sure that those are taken care of. Some instructors will require you to have brand new shoes that are nicely clean. There are some shoes that are able to be washed. However, I give that with a massive disclaimer because that's not always easily achievable and can actually damage the shoes. Oftentimes, you can blot with at least a little bit of baking soda and some water. On occasion, maybe a little dab of dish soap in there, but again, you have to be really cautious because some shoes, due to the glues and everything that are used on the shoe, can actually cause the shoe to fall apart. Another thing that you can use, and obviously you want to keep this separate from your standard makeup, but you can actually do a technique to kind of touch up your shoes where you can use a liquid foundation and blot it on the shoe and get that it comes out a little bit more matte than your traditional dance shoe, but if you do it in a consistent fashion and then spray over with some hairspray, it's usually fairly unnoticeable on stage. But again, that's kind of a quick pinch, or you're just covering up a spot that doesn't look like all too bad. So you have to use some of your judgment on this. Also, you have to make sure that you follow whatever your instructor states they would like. For tap dancers, you should always be doing a screw check on your shoes to begin with, but especially now, there's nothing worse than all of a sudden having a screw loose out on the stage. You don't want to be losing any screws or anything like that. And odds are, because you're performing, you probably want to go over and buff and polish your shoes. In a pinch, I know you can find some of those materials, even if you go to like whatever your local dollar item store might be. You might be able to find just a basic foundation you can use for some of these items. You can often find just a basic shoe repair if you're looking for something just simplistic for the time. If you're doing things like jazz, again, you may need to give those shoes a little bit of a polish. Make sure that you're using the proper colors for each of your respective items. You've got to be careful with that, so all of a sudden you don't have like a really funky blotch. You also make sure that your laces are intact, or if they need any repair. Again, if you're in a pinch on a budget, you can probably head to the nearby store and find a replacement item for some of those fairly easily. I actually keep a stash of spare shoelaces just in case, because you never know when one might tear. We tend to pull on them. Same goes for character shoes. Whole thing applies. Go over each of them, make sure that they are in working order, make sure if you need to possibly get new shoes, you always want to have a backup pair to begin with, because you never know. It could be leading right up to the show and all of a sudden something happens. You want to make sure that you have something that you can make work. You always want to keep a spare, I even keep a spare patch set on hand so that way if I do need to do a quick fix, I have something that I can work with. Obviously, this does not mean everybody's going to be walking around with dual pairs of shoes in their bags. However, this should be something that you are going over well in advance and not waiting until the day of and realizing that all of a sudden your shoes are in shambles. I will see you tomorrow when we talk about practice and mental prep work. I will see you then.